excited to be here knowing that Silent Sam is finally gonna fucking go. I'm excited to see so many more people, particularly so many more white people, showing up to say that Silent Sam has to fucking go, and for no longer telling us to be quiet and to change our language when we say that this university is fucking racist, is transphobic, misogynistic, doesn't care about its workers, doesn't care about its students, doesn't care about the people that is displaced and continues to displace, doesn't care about anyone on this fucking campus except for the people that are putting money in their pockets. That's right.
Let him go! Let him go! Put that stupid gun down! We don't know.
Oh, okay.
So this is the Confederate monument, or monument to the Confederacy on the campus of UNC-Chapel Hill, known as Silent Sam. On the side here, you can see a plaque, obviously claiming the credit for the United Daughters of the Confederacy. There's another plaque on the other side where it says that young soldiers who served in the Civil War fulfilled their duty to their great commander, and by fulfilling that duty, they should be honored prominently on the campus of the University of North Carolina.
Really, from what we know about Confederate monuments, especially Confederate monuments that were erected in public places, in prominent public places, is that there's no way to detach them from the broader mission of promoting white supremacy that groups like the United Daughters of the Confederacy advocated and fought for.
And so for a lot of people, the monuments aren't just about, the actual stone structures, but they're very much about what the people who built the monuments did to black people. And I think that's what's so offensive to many folks, because these are the very same people who also advocated violence against African Americans, advocated the violation of black people's 15th Amendment constitutional rights, and ultimately drove hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of African Americans from across the South. Jim Crow was a system of racial apartheid enacted across the entire American South to elevate white citizens over all others. Building Confederate monuments was just one of several things. A lot of people think it just involved water fountains or the fronts or backs of buses, but it was really a system that involved education, politics, social interactions, culture, access to wealth, where you could live, where you could work. It created a structural hierarchy of race in the American South. You enter UNC-Chapel Hill through sort of this gateway that is McCorkle Place, which is of course where the statue stands. Obviously this site was, chosen in order to give it that place of prominence.
And to have this statue, one of two public universities in the country to have this white supremacist Confederate statue on its campus, at the forefront of its campus, the first thing you see if you're coming in off of Franklin Street.
Is that what you want at the front door of the university in the 21st century? If so, why? If you go and look at Silent Sam today, you might just say, well, it's a memorial to young men who fought for the Confederacy who happen to be UNC students. But if you read the dedication speech, you really see what the intent was, the lesson they hoped that monument would convey. Julian Carr was very, very explicit about the connection between the Civil War, the defense of white supremacy, and the obligation of his contemporary audience to continue to preserve white supremacy. And he was offering that speech to the collected notables from the state, but also white men, undergraduates at the University of North Carolina at that time.
Though I might speak with the tongue of men and of angels,
neither song nor story could fittingly honor this glorious event.
The present generation, I am persuaded,
scarcely takes note of what the Confederate soldier meant
to the welfare of the Anglo-Saxon
race
during the 4 years immediately succeeding the war. I trust I may be pardoned for one allusion, howbeit it is rather personal.
100 yards from where we stand,
I horsewhipped.
Horsewhipped.
Horsewhipped. A Negro wench.
until her skirts hung in shreds.
Because upon the streets of this quiet village,
she had publicly insulted and maligned a Southern lady.
And then rushed for protection under these university buildings,
where was stationed a garrison of 100 federal soldiers.
I performed the pleasing duty in the immediate presence of the entire garrison.
This noble gift of the United Daughters of the Confederacy
touches deeply and tenderly the heart of every man
who has the privilege of claiming the University of North Carolina as his alma mater.
I thank you.
God bless you.
I want to just say before we end, please watch out for the students of the sit-in. Please join us. We're here Monday through Friday at this statue. It should not be just black and brown people sitting here at this statue talking about white supremacy. We need people to be out here with us. My roles as a student organizer are organizing the daily sit-in, making sure people are out there, making sure they have information, making sure they feel safe. Power! We wanted to provide the context that the university keeps saying that they will provide and haven't.
It was just this environment of truth. I learned a lot from people like Maya. So many people around the statue who had patience that I didn't have, that I hadn't practiced yet. And then I just kept coming back. Every single time I had free time, I went back.
And then your experience as a black person, which you don't know anything about slavery because you've never enslaved.
Excuse me.
She's never been a slave.
And you know what? But the fact that my ancestors were enslaved didn't affect me.
But who sold your ancestors in slavery? Do you feel intimidated when you walk by that?
I do, because it's celebrating people who disenfranchised my ancestors, who didn't want them to come to this university. Yes, I do feel disenfranchised. I do feel hurt. I think that you should acknowledge that. When people tell you that something is offensive to them, then acknowledge it. Think about it. Think about why they feel that way. We're at Silent Sam today because we got word that neo-Confederate white supremacist groups would show up today. And we wanted to stand out here to show these groups that they're not welcome on our campus, that their revisionist history is not welcome here, and that we will continue to be here until the Silent Sam comes down. So right now we're heading to South Building to bring this to Chancellor Folt. What a lot of times the university proposes is having some context around Silent Sam. Well, we've been out there every day providing this context. We have a fact sheet specifically about Silent Sam when it was built. We have Americanists out there every day talking about the history of the Civil War, talking about the Silent Sam. And what has that gotten us? A lot of times that's gotten us a lot of threats, a lot of intimidation, a lot of surveillance from DPS. Charlottesville, I think, gave a new impetus to a lot of people for why they wanted to be out here, why they wanted to protest. But this has been going on since black students have been here at UNC. The first recorded incident of students kind of combating Silent Sam as a racist figure on campus is 1968, the day after Martin Luther King was assassinated. So since then, there have been a number of different movements. 1971 was when James Cates, a young black man from Chapel Hill, was murdered in the pit by a white supremacist motorcycle gang. For 20 minutes, he lay in the pit bleeding out because the police wouldn't let anyone take him to the hospital. 1973, his murderers were acquitted by an all-white jury. I mean, we're out here because of this legacy.
Why Silent Sam can't come down.
The 2015 statute enacted by the North Carolina State Legislature is the primary obstacle. A monument, memorial, or work of art owned by the state may not be removed, relocated, or altered in any way without the approval of the North Carolina Historical Commission. So in order to remove, let's say, a monument from a public space, one has to get approval from the state in this case being the North Carolina Historic Commission.
Even though those legal barriers exist, there's a number of things the university could do to get past them.
They could petition the North Carolina Historical Commission to think about where to move the statue within the limits of the law that was passed in 2015. They say it's because their lawyers tell them their hands are tied, but there are lots of other legal opinions that would say that there's no harm in asking the North Carolina Historical Commission to consider the fate of Silent Sam.
One of the other issues in terms of the leadership, and I think this particular chancellor, is that she feels this great amount of pressure to save her job. Even though we have numerous departments, including my own department, issue statements clearly outlining what academics say about the Confederate monument, South Building has remained silent in terms of its meaning.
When you're choosing not to inform your students, you're allowing them to stay ignorant and you're allowing them to make false assumptions, which is that it's not a big deal, that it's just a statue, that it's not important enough.
Which does a disservice, A, to public education, but then certainly allows counter-narratives to prevail that say that no, it's actually just about the soldiers and shouldn't be thought of in terms of Jim Crow at all.
But then you send out police officers to spy on us, to go undercover.
There are things you can do, you're choosing not to.
To me, clear and present thing that they could do is remove the statue on the grounds that it poses a public safety threat.
The law makes an exception for an object of remembrance for which a building inspector or similar official poses a threat to public safety because of an unsafe or dangerous condition.
You cannot tell me that it doesn't pose a public safety threat and have police standing near it 24/7. That does not make logical sense. So they can remove it on those grounds. Roy Cooper, the governor of the state and former attorney general, also supported removing the statue on the grounds of public safety. And he wrote an open letter to the chancellor's office telling them, move forward with that. And so in that way, I mean, he gave them kind of this political cover also to do that.
Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act essentially says that you cannot discriminate or treat people differently because of, among other things, race. One of the ways that you would do that or violate that law is to create a racially hostile environment on a college campus.
There are students who are saying this is a concern, this is something that's really distressing to us. It influences our ability to do our work, to concentrate, to focus. In that sense, having a monument that kind of compromises the psychological integrity of African American students has the potential to really be detrimental to their mental and physical health.
The argument therefore goes that you can't have that statue on campus and still be in compliance with Title VI.
We started doing sit-ins, we've done the protests. What's next on the list? Boycott. So a couple of us formed a coalition to boycott all UNC restaurants and stores. Essentially, we were saying just eat at Rams or Lenore or Franklin Street. That was it. Boycott was essentially organized by Black women. Me and Mystery worked real hard on that. The ultimate goal was to show students that we do have collective power and also to educate ourselves as student activists on what it takes to organize a mass-scale protest. Because we were able to organize, and it did empower a lot of our students to know that we do have the power to do this.
A declared campus-wide boycott that really invigorated people.
We knew that not everybody was going to participate. We knew that not everybody was going to hear about it or even care. But what about the Black community? Like,
minority communities? Like, what about the alumni community? Were we able to use the boycott to reach out to inspire them to do something as well? The answer is yes. So for me, that counts as a success.
So Hark the Drum is making sure that any funding that does go to UNC for All is being specifically directed to organizations that contribute to the well-being of people of color.
Just to know that the Black alumni community from UNC hears us, they stand with us, that they're supporting us was huge. I feel like that sparked a lot of activists' energy again.
Student organizers fostered an environment for these conversations and encouraged people, empowered our community.
And now that we know that alumni are working to boycott UNC for All, it let us know that none of our work was in vain. A lot of the time, the way that the university responded to us was to limit our free speech.
I see a lot of attempts to hold events that preemptively stop students from being able to ask questions and are focused around letting the chancellors divert and to lie and to pretend that they can't do anything, rather than to have people ask them questions.
The free speech policy says that if you disrupt a speaker, especially if they're political, if you bring in a sign that's larger than around notebook paper size, if you're too loud, then the university has the opportunity to punish you with anything leading up to expulsion. It's a way to funnel protests into something that is more easily digestible, and when protest is more easily digestible, it's easier to ignore it.
The day that UNC launched this UNC for All campaign, campus-wide put up banners. The banners said Black Lives Matter. One of them had a quote from Chancellor Folt talking about how much she loves to protect the students and then asking her, who are you protecting? So they tore down all of our banners. They didn't tear down any of the banners on any of the other schools. The UNC for All banners were technically against school legislation, according to them. They left those up.
People say political speech is supposed to be protected, but when we think about which political speech is protected, Black Lives Matter can't hang.
During the occupation, when we were there 24/7, this guy named Victor started hanging out there.
I remember so vividly his behavior. He would walk up to the statue, sit his bike down, and then he would just start the conversation. Hey, how's it going? How's it been? And one specific time he asked me, are there any plans for if the administration doesn't do it, do y'all have any plans of taking it down?
People started getting suspicious because he would tell stories that didn't add up.
I didn't believe it until I think Maya messaged me and was like, hey, did you see the video that we posted?
We started walking down to McCorkle Place. All of a sudden, we see Victor, and he's in his DPS uniform.
No, I'm in uniform, so we're not gonna record it, okay?
And I was almost shocked. I at first didn't believe it was him.
Didn't you talk to me while I was over there?
I said your name Victor because you told us your name was Victor.
You talk to me over there.
She's allowed to say your name.
Why did you have to lie though? Why did you have to lie though? Why? Because I'm in uniform. That's why.
You weren't over there.
And I'm representing the university right now.
His name wasn't Victor. His name was Hector. He wasn't a mechanic. He was a policeman.
There was an undercover cop spying on us and gathering information on us in our sit-in. Now we know to the extent of how terrible it is, how bad they mistreat us here, how poorly they trust us.
But don't say you didn't lie.
Yeah, because you lied.
The idea that you have two different names. It's like you have aliases. That's weird.
You lied about your name? It was just such a weird and terrible interaction. Not only finding out that he went undercover and lied to us, but just the way that he justified it because that's police work.
I will never forget that infiltration, and I have to be reminded of it every time I see him. I see him so often. He's always still in the same area. They couldn't even reposition him. Why would the university go this far to protect racist ideology? It doesn't make any sense when it goes against what they claim to stand for, because that is not hashtag UNC for all. Our only goal was to get a campus free of racial hostility, which includes removing Silent Sam. We just wanted to encourage Chancellor Folt to stand on the right side and do the right thing, because we hoped that she was just ignorant, that she didn't know enough. Their claim is that, you just never know, it's better safe than sorry. But isn't it better safe than sorry to take down the statue? Like, isn't it better safe than sorry to remove this space, creating hostility, creating potential for danger?
It grew to a sense of paranoia, how big is this? What have they found out about us? What are they trying to put on us? Who else is an undercover cop? Who can I trust?
They have my face. They know my name. It can really make you paranoid.
I learned how much this university is willing to stand against us.
That was the end of all hope in the administration in terms of them dealing with Silent Sam, that moment.
Every man who has the privilege of claiming the University of North Carolina as his alma mater. I dare to affirm this day that if every state of the South had done what North Carolina did without a murmur, always faithful to its duty, whatever the groans of the victims, there never would have been an appomattox, and the political geography of America would have been rewritten. It is true that the snows of winter, which never melt, return our tables.
No cops! No Klan! Get rid of Silent Sam! No cops! No Klan! Get rid of Silent Sam! No cops! No Klan! Get rid of Silent Sam! No cops! No Klan! Get rid of Silent Sam! No cops! No Klan! Get rid of Silent Sam!
Who do you protect? Who do you serve? Who do you protect? Who do you serve? Who do you protect? Who do you serve?
We love you, Maya! We love you! We see you! We love you!
Thank you!
We see you! We love you! We see you! We love you! We see you! We love you! We see you! We love you! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! This racist statue's got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! This racist statue's got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! This racist statue's got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! This racist statue's got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! This racist statue's got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! This racist statue's got to go!
After winning the national championship, UNC students rushed Franklin Street, climbed traffic lights, shot fireworks, lit couches on fire, took turns leaping drunk over the flame, and police officers stood by the sidewalk, watched, and did nothing. After all, this was a historic victory. This was a celebration.
On Franklin, my friend watches the crowd nearly trample a girl, and the police do nothing.
On Franklin, I'm assaulted by the crowd, pushed towards the fire, smoke fills my lungs, and the police do nothing.
I watch a student scale a flagpole, sparklers erupting from his hands,
and the police do nothing.
I become claustrophobic. There is no way out.
I can't breathe.
And the police do nothing. Months earlier, after years of inaction on the part of school administrators,
UNC students gathered at the northmost quad to demand the removal of a Confederate monument standing 10 yards from Franklin. There,
students stood together,
arms linked,
singing songs Martin would have marched to.
There, police officers stood by them, brought a barricade, brought batons, brought riot gear, brought tear gas, brought roar. After all, this was an attack on America. Black Lives Matter is an extremist group. This was a riot. Can you spot the difference?
between a victory for home and an attack against it.
Black students, never drunk, never violent,
organized to make a safer home on a campus that would rather put their faces on a brochure than their names on a campus building.
There is a difference between a riot and a reckoning, and the university does not know it, does not care that its past and its present look the same.
Students chanting protest in the quad.
Students placing their bodies on the line between a history of broken chains and a future of broken bones.
Black hands built this white institution, its brick and mortar, its gardens and quads.
We hold up the fruit of our labor like a championship, won after seasons of hard work, hard losses, and hard-fought wins. They'd rather hang our bodies than a banner.
Give a participation award to the team we beat. The only trophy displayed is that of a Confederate soldier, and the only brown skin the university protects is the bronze of that same statue.
I never really knew what a panic attack was until last semester. I thought what we were fighting against was just the administration not knowing, not understanding how much it means to us. We're saying a piece of our student body is hurting. Why wouldn't they care?
Every time I walk past that statue, it is a consistent reminder that my life and the life of people that look like me on this campus is not valued at the same level as these white students that walk around here.
It's been a lot to carry in that sense. It's been a lot to see my brothers and sisters go through the mental struggle and physical struggle that comes with being an activist.
I'm always reminded of my skin color. The weight of it is there, and it builds. I think the hardest thing about this thing is that I will never get to walk away from it.
I would say, in a lot of ways, we have borrowed from the past.
Our people are resilient. Through slavery, Jim Crow, we've never once throughout history decided to just sit down and take it.
Silent Sam honestly is just the beginning. This defunding the Civil Rights Center, that ain't over. Retention rate for black males being trash, that ain't over.
Increased surveillance of our black and brown bodies.
These are also all connected to Silent Sam.
Silent Sam is coming down.
Silent Sam better be taken down.
I don't know if it's going to happen in our time, but I know Silent Sam will be removed. We're going to move forward.
It's not gonna stop. It's not. We got a long way to go.